right, so Module 10 is Island Biogeography. Biogeography is basically a concept that impacts the number of species that live on islands. And it does this in two different ways, okay? So the first way is how large the island is. So we look at island size. The larger an island is, the more species that it has. And that's what these graphs are showing you. The more square kilometers, again, square kilometers, we can see that there is a direct relationship to the number of species that we see on that island. Okay, so something like Cuba is going to have a lot more species than something like Redonda. Okay, Puerto Rico has fewer species than Cuba. Cuba is a larger island, okay? So that's kind of what that is telling us, and make sure that you understand that. That's really an important concept. All right, and then the second way that it impacts species diversity is that the further away from the mainland that an island is, the fewer species that can colonize the island or that can immigrate to that island decreases. So this is an indirect relationship. So as we move further away from the mainland, there will be fewer species. It's an indirect relationship there. Okay, so make sure that you understand that. Again, you should be able to read graphs on this, so I would look at these figures that we see throughout this section and make sure that you can understand those. This graph is probably the key graph to understanding island biogeography. So as let's see, what is this showing us? As the rate of colonization decreases, the number of species decreases. So that means the further away from the island that we get, we're gonna see this. And so that's really important there as well. Okay, let's look at, I think that's it. Another key point in this section is that some species on islands have evolved to be specialists. I really think of the Hawaiian Islands having extremely specialized species that live there. And they are more vulnerable to invasive species. A great example of that is the brown tree snake that lives on the island of Guam. It has basically wiped out a lot of island native species, including like birds, bats, and different lizards. And brown tree snakes on Guam have been studied. Scientists have been studying those for quite some time. I actually knew somebody in college when I was at Ohio State that was working on their graduate research on the island of Guam. So that's kind of cool. All right, so all species are native, everything we find on the planet are native to some ecosystem somewhere. They become problems when they move into a new area and they have no predators to keep their population in check. And they then kind of take over and they outcompete basically other species. And so the AP exam might ask you to describe one invasive species, and you should be able to identify the species and then state what the problem is with that species. Some good examples of that would be the brown tree snake, like we just talked about. Zebra mussels, we talked about that in Unit 1. We also, they talked about kudzu in Unit 1. Those are all examples of invader species. So you should be able to describe the problem with those organisms, but you're not going to be asked ever to explain, they're not going to come out and say, tell us about the brown tree snake in Guam. They're not going to do that. But they might ask you to describe a problem with an invader species, and you should have a couple of examples. That's why I think it's always a good idea to read the images and the captions that are with the images throughout the book, because you will get those examples that way. Okay, I think that's it for Unit 10, and I will see you all next time with Unit 11, which is going to cover Module 11, which will cover ecological tolerance.